The Honorable Maimane.
House Chair, honorable members, Bagaetsu, Dumela. Each of us in this house today is faced with a choice. We can choose a future based on the rule of law, where every person is equal before the law, no matter what position they hold or the wealth they've acquired, where the life of every person has equal value. Or we can choose a future based on the rule of big men, where might is right, where rich and powerful politicians literally get away with murder, where the lives of ordinary African people are cheap and expendable. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, our choice today is a choice between the rule of law or the rule of war. If you don't believe me, honorable members, I'd like to read an extract from the Washington Post dated on the 1st of July in 2004.
Order, honorable members, order.
It says,
Order, honorable members. On my mind, will you take your seat, please? Honorable members, can we just get something straight for this afternoon's debate, please? Honorable members, all political parties in the House have a right to speak on this topic, and the different members of the parties will articulate those views. Whilst interjections are allowed, you cannot drown the speaker at the podium with the levels of honorable members. You cannot drown the speaker at the podium with your interjections, because that will lead to a situation where we don't hear one another. It's important for the speakers later in the debate to be able to respond what the honorable member who have moved the motion has to say to the House. Proceed, honorable member.
I'd like to read an extract from the Washington Post dated on the 1st of July 2004. It says this: at first light on Sunday, 3 young women walked into a scrubby field just outside their refugee camp in West Darfur. They'd gone out to collect straw for their family's donkeys. They recalled thinking that the Arab militiamen who were attacking African tribes at night would still be asleep. But 6 men grabbed them, yelling Arabic slurs such as Zurga and Abid, meaning black and slave. Then the men raped them, beat them, and left them on the ground. It was one of the survivors, the 22-year-old Sawela Suleiman, told a journalist, and I quote, "They grabbed my donkey and my straw and said, 'Black girl, you are too dark. You are like a dog. We want to make a light baby.'" As this young woman recounted her story, she displayed the slashes on her thighs where her attackers had repeatedly whipped her as they raped her. It is hard to imagine, but by surviving this unthinkable ordeal, this young woman was one of the lucky ones. Bagaetsu, go itlhela go feta over 400,000 men, women, children were killed in the genocide in Darfur. They were killed on the orders of a murderous tyrant by the name of Omar al-Bashir. The International Criminal Court found that there are reasonable grounds to believe that Omar al-Bashir is criminally responsible for intentionally directing attacks against a civilian population. The charges against him include the murder, extermination, forcible transfer, rape, torture, and genocide of fellow Africans. On another day, honorable members, we can debate the merits of the ICC, but this debate is about the constitution of this country. Omar al-Bashir represents everything that is dark about the world we live in. He joins the ranks of the genocidal dictators from across the globe, Hitler of Germany, Pol Pot of Cambodia, Stalin of the Soviet Union, and Chairman Mao of the People's Republic of China. These are big men of our times, and like all bullies, they are broken men. Broken men whose self-esteem depends on bending others to their will. These are broken men who will stop at nothing in pursuit of power. Broken men presiding over broken societies. When Nelson Mandela said that human rights will be the light that guides our foreign affairs, he issued a warning to all such broken men. He said no more would South Africa protect dictators at the expense of ordinary people. All will be equal under the law. This government has officially abandoned Nelson Mandela's commitment to a human rights-based foreign policy on the 15th of June. That was the day Omar al-Bashir was smuggled away from South African soil in defiance of an order of the North Gauteng High Court. It was an escape aided and abetted by President Jacob Zuma himself. In fact, the AU chairperson, Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe, confirmed during a media briefing after an AU summit, stating that Zuma said President al-Bashir would not be arrested. Indeed, on the 6th of August in this house, the president acknowledged the decision to allow al-Bashir to escape was based on a decision by his cabinet to grant al-Bashir immunity. On that day, when President Jacob Zuma helped a mass murderer escape justice, he trampled on the legacy of Tata Madiba and ultimately violated this constitution. On that day, when President Jacob Zuma chose to violate a court order, he attacked the very foundations of our constitutional democracy. House Chair, our broken president broke the law to protect yet another broken man. This is why today we've tabled a motion to set up an ad hoc committee to look into the impeachment of President Zuma. The constitution of our country proceeds for impeachment proceedings in this constitution when a president commits such a to request the South African government. The ICC made it clear that South Africa is under obligation to arrest al-Bashir. Specifically, the ambassador was reminded that the Security Council has lifted all immunities and South Africa could not invoke any other decision, including that of the African Union, negating the obligation of the arrest. Further to this, on the 14th of June, an interim order was granted by the North Gauteng High Court prohibiting al-Bashir from leaving the Republic. This was followed by an order on the 15th of June by the same court that found the failure to arrest al-Bashir was inconsistent with the constitution of this country and that the decision was by cabinet to do so was unlawful. Honorable members, there's a higher calling on those that lead our nation as the President of our Republic. It is an honor reserved only for those with the deepest commitment to the laws of our country. Yet on the 15th of June, President Jacob Zuma held a constitutional order in contempt. By aiding and abetting the escape of a convicted war criminal, the president contravened both international and domestic law. Nothing illustrates further the ANC's slide into a moral abyss under President Jacob Zuma like this does. What is factually true is that gone is the party that once stood for constitutionalism and the rule of law. Gone is the selfless struggle of President Nelson Mandela. Instead, in its place, we find a shell that reverberates with empty rhetoric, a party hollowed out by President Zuma and a corrupt clique around him. The people who will bring us Nkandla Gate, Gupta Gate, Spy Gate, and coming soon to a tender near you, Nuclear Gate. I know that many in these benches are worried about the direction your party is going on. In fact, your NGC documents say exactly that. They say that there are negative trends are an injunction to the ANC to mend its ways. Honorable members, I can't agree more. But the best way for you to mend your ways is to, in fact, you simply can't fix a broken president. You can recall him today. You've done it before. You can do it today in this house. It is your opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to put South Africa on track. As someone once said, a crisis should never be wasted. We stand at the crucible of a constitutional crisis. Today, this House has a choice of either being colonized by the executive to defend President Zuma or to uphold the oath of our Constitution. So the separation of powers, each branch of government, checking and balancing each other. I can't think of a better way to affirm the supremacy of our constitutional order. So ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, join us today. Don't let this constitutional crisis go to waste. Vote to impeach President Jacob Zuma, this broken man. Nkosi sikeleli Africa. Morena buluka sitjhaba sa heso. I thank you very much.